Tembela. I'm from Zello, and I'm here tonight to just mingle.
I'm Della Artubra, founder of NGO Recruit Africa. It's a social enterprise that recruits for a non-profit environment as well as think tanks and civil society at large. And I'm here because really not one person knows everything. There's always so much to learn from other startups and what they're doing in the global environment. So here goes.
Hello, my name is Rebecca. I'm from Switzerland. I am from Gracie too. This is our startup, and what I expect to learn tonight is just to get to know people. And also I've heard that the guys are managed to do proper investment strategies for their business, get funding, and this is for startups especially important. So I'm excited to learn more about that tonight.
My name is Angela, I'm from Switzerland too, I'm from the same company, and yeah, I'm just hoping to get some inputs on founding this evening.
Hello, my name is Sarah, I'm also from Switzerland, also from Gracie too, and we are working for sustainable fashion, and I'm really excited to be here, get to know the city, and tonight I'm just excited to see get to know other startups and learn from this, yeah.
Welcome again to another Startup Grind episode. So tonight we're going to be interviewing Brett and Brad Magrath from Zoona. They've just raised $15 million in Series B funding, and we're at a brand new venue called Workshop 17, so really excited being here. See you now. Okay, so let's take it to the guys. Are you guys ready? Brett and Brad. These guys are actually not South African, as much as we would love them to be, but they were born in Kitwe, in Zambia. They did go to school here in South Africa. We're going to hear their whole life story. But in 2009, you will find out how as well, they launched or started the idea of Zoona. Now, Zoona is if you want to say it correctly, I suppose, think of sauna, like hot sauna. Zoona, there we go. Because being entrepreneurship is tough work. So these guys started the company, and it's basically to try and help get money from point A to point B, to try and help local unbanked people that are not using the banking system, and to help the community. So it's very, very focused around the actual user, which I think is very amazing. What's even more incredible, and why it ties in with the Women in Tech, is that they actually launched in, Nike has actually focused on them and said that they're one of the top 10 companies to help women get out of poverty, which I think is absolutely incredible. Okay, so here we go. Guys, thank you very much for coming, and please stand. This is a very American thing. Please stand. Give a massive round of applause for Brett and Brad. Woo!
Good to see you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for
cool, man.
There we go.
Testing, 1, 2. Yeah.
Testing, there we go.
I've always wanted to do that. Testing, 1, 2. Yeah.
Can you guys all hear Brett and Brad?
So we were told a bit earlier that we had to come by high-fiving everybody, and we're like, no, we're not going to do that. So sorry, G.
Okay. So the first thing we always ask is, where were you born?
Born in Kitwe, Zambia, and grew up a mixture of Zambia, Singapore, and boarding school in South Africa. So that's kind of both of us 7 years apart at a similar upbringing.
Okay. I always thought you guys were twins. And how did you guys
That's
come
clearly
up?
not a compliment.
Ask the audience. I think when you work hard, So the question I'd like to know is, in 60 seconds, what is Zoona?
Okay, just to see if everyone's awake. If you mind just finding enough room and in clockwise direction, move your right leg in a clockwise direction. And then draw the number 6 with your right hand. So hopefully your leg changed direction and you don't even know why. So that's what we do at Zoona. We try and find big problems and try and solve them. So Seven years ago, the two of us looked at Africa, and we were from Zambia, and there was massive unemployment in Zambia and other countries in Africa, and there was 80% of the population were unbanked or financially excluded. So to us, it was really about how could we take our entrepreneurial energy, our commitment to technology or mobile tech, innovation and disruption, and really go and solve big problems. So since then, we've built an agent network of over 2,500 agents, of which 70% of them are girls under the age of 25 years old. We've transacted over $1 billion. We've paid out over $1 million US in commissions to those agents, and we have 1.5 million active 90-day consumers who trust us with $40 million of transactions each and every month. So I think our purpose is to help people send and receive money when they need to most.
Okay. Those are huge numbers, especially in Africa. How does it actually work? Like, do I walk up to somewhere, or do I take my phone out and send money? How does it work?
Yeah, I mean, in its very basic form, you'll have somebody who doesn't have a bank account. In most of the markets we transact in, banking penetration is only about 14%. And even then, a huge amount of those people are just banked purely to get their salary, and then they go to ATM and get cash. So they're very much cash economies. So in its basic form, you walk up to one of our agents, you say you want to send some money, they log into a mobile phone which connects into our system, they create a money transfer, hand over the cash and the fee. In our case, the sender always pays the fee, so they can be guaranteed what the receiver is going to get. We spit out a few SMSs to different people, so one to the sender, one to the receiver, and then on a real-time basis, that receiver can walk up to one of our agents anywhere in the country and go and collect the cash. So in its base form, a relatively simplistic product, but I think the complexity comes in is how do you actually guarantee that experience, and how do you ensure there's always cash within your agent channel? How do you empower entrepreneurs? And that's almost the secret sauce outside of the very basic ability to move money in and out.
I'm so used to having a microphone. Okay, so the money gets transferred. Now you operate in 3 African countries. Zambia,
Malawi just launched in Mozambique and starting in DRC in the new year. DRC
oh, wow. Okay, so already 4. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you transfer the money now if you say, hey, I want to transfer money to my friend in Mozambique, and you're in Lusaka, how do you guys as a company get the money to go between the banks?
So interestingly enough, the bulk of our business is actually local remittances. So we do a bit of cross-border out of South Africa. So in Malawi now, which is the country itself is struggling with poor agriculture, there's a lot of money flowing in from South Africa. So I think 60% of the Malawian business is international remittances in. But the bulk is just very much just your local people on the ground with a need to send money. So you're talking, average transactional values of about $30. So I think that's about 450 Rand would be your sort of average size. So just small amounts of money moving across the community. And I think the secret to us is in Zambia, I think there were like 100 bank, Barclays Bank, for example, had 100 bank branches after 100 years of operations, whereas we had 1,500 locations in 4 years. So I think it's really just getting to where people need us to be most and really going out into the communities.
And then those people are they employees of yours, or
no,
that do the changing?
Not.
How does that work?
So they're entrepreneurs. Interestingly enough, the way we've had to set up the business is we set them up in business, we finance them. I know some of our data team are here, so they've got 5 years of data where they've built a cohort where for the first 18 months we actually pay all people's costs so that we invest in their business as long as they perform within a cohort range. But the idea being as soon as they get past break even, then they become entrepreneurs in their own right. And that's critical for us because we're absolutely passionate about the difference an entrepreneur via an employee will make.
Okay, so you guys, you actually walk up to a booth, hand in the money, do the transaction. I know in Kenya they've got M-Pesa, so the question being, which just disappeared, what is the difference between Zoona and M-Pesa?
So I think the key difference, and we've seen it in South Africa. I mean, M-Pesa tried to launch here, and they took a tech and applied it to a market and just thought it would work, and it didn't. I think every market has its own market dynamics. And in our case, when we actually launched Zoona, we actually launched a very similar model to M-Pesa, which was like deposit money at an agent into your mobile phone and then do a transaction. Where the key difference now is our consumers do not have mobile wallets. They purely hand over cash. So that their our consumers' basic need is I have a need to get cash from point A to point B. I don't have a need to load it onto my phone to then transact and learn how to use my phone to facilitate a transaction. Like that's a different use case. So it's almost the simplicity of the product that has kind of really enabled the scale.
Okay, let's go right back to the very beginning. How did you guys come up with this idea?
I think the original idea was actually to pay rural cotton farmers onto a cell phone. So I think in any business you tend to start something without really knowing where you're going, and then you pivot on various stages and you get traction in different areas. So I think we always wanted to play in this space, but it really was just finding one product that worked and then really almost learning the power of saying no to everything else and really doubling down on that product and just making sure that at the key customer choke points that we were 10 times better than anyone else at those moments. Because you can't be good at everything, but just really choosing what to be good at and then being better than everyone else at that.
Yeah, and I think the interesting one is if you were to say, like, where did you come up with the big idea? Like, we never came up with this idea. Like, we had a problem that we were originally trying to solve, and it evolved into this idea. And I think that's almost, maybe part of the secret to success is it's not actually the idea that's the value, it's the ability to execute on it. And I think that's it. Like if we were to go back to, like we started off trying to pay rural cotton farmers, that was the original thing. And prior to that, we were involved in other businesses, loads, like from comics to airtime to whatever it might have been. But I think it's all that journey towards where you end up, as opposed to like a particular bright spark thing that pops in your head one night.
Okay, can you give us some cases of failures of one of your failure ideas?
So I think the interesting one for me is, like as an entrepreneur, anyone trying to get into business, is nothing is a failure. I think it's every business failure that you have is basically a learning opportunity to work out what you did wrong and improve on that. So I think, I wouldn't say we've had lots of failures. We've had a huge amount of learnings. I suppose one would be trying to do too many things. I think in the early days, as I said, we've been involved in comic businesses, we've been involved in airtime businesses, SMS businesses. I think if anybody came to us and said, hey, why don't you try this, we probably would have. So that's definitely one of the learnings.
Yeah, I think we've always had this thing, how do you get to make good decisions? Well, with experience. How do you get experience? Well, you make lots of bad decisions. So I think, through the times, I think we learned that you couldn't do it all yourself. So in businesses where we try to do everything ourselves, we fell over. So the learning is surround yourself with great people, which we've now done. We had a few partnerships that didn't work out, and the people weren't there for us when we needed them. So I think it's really just you're going to walk through a brick wall and you're going to fall over. And I think I worry, like in Africa we often talk about, we assimilate risk and failure. If you reach too high, there's a bit of a tall poppy syndrome where people want to cut you down. And I think it's absolutely critical that, like, when you see someone fall over, pick them up, because in any moment you're going to fall over. And when you see someone winning, like, celebrate that winning, because those people would have worked hard to get where they are. So I really think as an entrepreneurial community, and I think it's a very American thing, and we've got American shareholders, is this absolute concept that you learn by doing, and you act, learn, repeat, and you take it as lessons. Like, don't keep making the same mistake, because that wouldn't be smart. So just find new mistakes to make, and you'll probably be fine.
Probably fine, hopefully. Okay, let's go right to the next step. You had the idea. You're like, this is a cool idea. Let's do it. What was the next step you took? I'm not an entrepreneur. I also have an idea. What would be the next step that I would take? But in your case, for you.
I think the first thing for us is we see very little value in ideas. I mean, any one of us in the room could sit around and we could have 100 great ideas. I think the first thing you've got to do is you've got to get traction. And I think traction is focus on your customer, focus on your customer pain point. surround yourself with a good team. I think the investment community are not looking for ideas. They're looking for proven teams with traction, with customers. So I think all we've ever tried to do is focus on your customer and really get into what is the customer pain point you're trying to solve. And don't do it for vanity. Don't do it because you think it's what you want to do. Really understand what customer centricity is and how you solve real customer problems.
Am I going to tell the SMS?
Yeah.
Okay, so to put that in context, in our case, I remember getting an SMS. I actually woke up at about 6 in the morning and looked at my phone, and there was an SMS from Brad going, "Dude, got a great idea. This is the one." And I tried to phone him at about 7, no answer. I think I then tried to phone him at about 9, answered with a slightly hoarse voice. I was like, "Bro, like, what's this idea?" Eh? He's like, let me just phone the guys I was with last night. I'll come back to you. But anyway, that idea was actually Zoona. We kind of worked our way around it. But yeah, I think that goes to the point. It's that ability to be brave enough to start whatever the idea is, and you end up somewhere interesting.
So you had to put down a actual station for somebody to go to change the money, and it had to be sent somewhere else. How did you navigate? Because we obviously didn't have another place to send it to.
So
did you drive out to the person, or?
Yeah, we were quite robust in the early days. So we always wondered, like when someone had a fax machine, like the first fax machine, who did you send a fax to? Because no one else had a fax machine. So we were quite bootstrapping in the early days. So we would literally send our guys out into a town, and they'd have to set up an agent, and would give them enough money for 3 days. And we would only send them money when they set up their agent in that town. And we'd send them enough to get to the next town. And we did it ourselves too. I mean, like all of us, we had no money in the business and we were starting with nothing. So we really did bootstrap for a long time. Eh?
Okay, so for those that don't know what bootstrapping is, it's when you use your own money to fund your idea.
So I was going to say the other interesting thing that we did in the early days is we took a full-page color advert in the Post newspaper, which is, it was one of the main newspapers in Zambia, and we only had enough money to literally fund one day. So we went out and we literally bought as many newspapers as we could, and whenever guys went out into the field, they would show our newspaper advert and how we were this big business that took a full-page color advert. But I think at that stage, it was probably about a month old. We were like, check this advert.
If they don't read the small print, they won't know. Okay, so bootstrapping in the beginning, you obviously, I mean, the company can only last for so long with your own money. Did you go to a bank for a loan? What was the next step?
So I think the step for us is, I think we were very fortunate because we're a purpose-driven business. Our first funding was actually grant funding from USAID, and the idea being we were always about having social impact and really trying to change the way things were done in communities. So I think we raised $121,000 of grant funding, which sort of helped us keep going. A couple of years later, we raised $350,000 of equity. But the other thing I'd encourage everyone to do is go and get revenue. Like you've got to deliver value that someone's prepared to pay for. So we've always been very deliberate around proving what we're trying to do in the market, proving people will pay for it, because as soon as people pay for it, you've got some ability to cover costs. So I think as entrepreneurs, I would strenuously encourage you to prove your customer value proposition, prove people will pay for it, and just focus as hard as you can on getting revenue.
You guys are two people that started a company, but you both are not CEO. Why aren't you CEO, one of you CEO, and what is the thought process of having two co-founders?
I mean, there's two co-founders because we're the co-founders.
Let me rephrase that question. Would you choose co-founder over single founder?
No, I think we've relied on each other a lot. I think whoever you found a business with, I mean, the fact that we're brothers, there was always a lot of trust. But you've really got to trust the other person. I think you've also got to find someone who's very different to you. So we both have very unique and different skills. In terms of why we're not the CEO, well, personally, we got a great CEO. He's also one of our partners. He arrived in the business fairly early on. He sweated with us. He put money into the business, and you couldn't pay me enough money to do his job. So I think we're very much around focusing on your strengths, focusing on what gets you into flow. And the work Mike does just wouldn't work for me. And I'd encourage any entrepreneur, like we were given some good advice quite early on, is do you want a small piece of a very big pie or a big piece of a small pie? And the two of us always wanted to build a big business. And people often say, but then you're not in control of your business. Like, I think control is a very subjective word, in that people's very best behaviors is always given, it's never taken. So I don't think I'm in control of anything. You just try and create an environment where you can attract good people and try and get them to do good things.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key thing is to start a business is damn hard. So if you're going to be successful, make sure you're doing the role that you are absolutely passionate about and love doing. Otherwise, you will run out of energy and you will run out of steam and not make it to the finish line. So I think for us, like we've always tried to focus on getting ourselves into roles that we are inspired by, and we actively throwing as much energy as we can into those roles. And I'll be honest, neither of us would want that role. The next thing is then finding somebody absolutely amazing to step into that position. And in our case, that's Mike.
How does you take a percentage of all your fees? What is your business model? And do you focus it more on a social kind of a model, or is it more based on your returns and revenues and set targets, etc.?
I think our main focus right now is growth. So how fast we can grow revenue, how fast we can grow our customer base. And we do that by focusing on solving customer pain points. We're not the cheapest in the market. We do charge good fees, and I think it's important. For us to be anything but a successful, sustainable business would just be crazy. And I think you can have much greater social impact by being a well-run, effective, profitable business. Not to say we make profits yet, though.
But again, running with that, I think it's an interesting dynamic, even in maybe a South African context and an African context in general, is this kind of realm of you must be a successful business and then you must give back to your community, which is just so counterintuitive, where our approach is enable communities to thrive and then you have a successful business. And we truly believe that by bringing financial services to the areas in the market that we go to, we can actually very much align both of those objectives of ours.
In the last month or so, you've employed about 40 people. How do you, manage that? Let's start there. How do you guys manage employing 40 people and making sure that they are top quality?
So my answer is you assign it to somebody who enjoys that stuff, and it's not me.
So I think you've one of the things we had an internal referral program, because we've employed a lot of really great people. So the idea being great people attract more great people. We put a lot of effort into our recruitment. We put a lot of effort into our onboarding. We put a lot of effort into hiring for culture. We also make it incredibly difficult to get through the door. Like we would rather lose 5 good people than have 1 bad person come in the door, because if you bring in a B player, it becomes a C player. So it's got to be people that are culture fits. They've got to be aligned with the organization. They've got to be aligned on their personal value system. And it's very different being in a startup scaling up business, because it's not about bringing in people who can oversee something. You've really got to bring in people who can work in the mess, who can get in. Like I often say, if you come to office, it kind of looks like a Ferrari, but it's a Mazda 323 sometimes if you look under the hood. So it's really got to be finding people who will get their hands dirty and really build and create, as opposed to just oversee.
What do you do to ensure that the ethos of the company is carried over?
So I think that I was going to say this exact point is that I think culture will trump skill any day. So anybody who ever enters into Zoona, culture is the number one kind of hiring criteria, and I think that kind of stems so much of how we kind of retain that ethos.
And I'll give you another example. I literally spoke to someone today who went through 13 interviews to get accepted. So we have cultural interviews, we have technical interviews, we have culture captain interviews. I've interviewed every one of those 40 people as a last interview step. I don't know how scalable that is over time. But really it's about bringing people in the door. We have a very intensive onboarding process. We have an intensive 90-day onboarding process. So you you really get people up and running. And it's challenging. And I think people, where we are as a business now, moving from startup to scale up, does require bringing in specialists and specialist knowledge. And you've almost got your specialist knowledge versus your cultural founded or startup DNA, and the two don't always play nicely together. So it's how do you create an environment where you understand what you do today can't get you to where you need to go, but you still want to make sure where you go is as cool as it is today. So that's kind of the dynamics that we're playing with at the moment.
You're based in Cape Town, but you're actually running your company in those 3-4 countries. Why are you based in Cape Town, and what are the benefits from that?
So I'll answer that by saying, I don't know where's Kath? Do you want to put up your... So my brother was working in London, and Kath was moving back to Cape Town, so Brett followed Kath. So I think that would be the first reason. But far more seriously than that, there's a great engineering tech skill set here in Cape Town. And there's a good entrepreneurial vibe, and it's a great place to bring talent. So we've got, I think, 140 people in our Cape Town office now, and there's 25 different nationalities in that group of people. So it's an amazing place to really get really good, skilled people. I mean, look around you. It's a beautiful city here.
No, that's for sure. And then managing, do you fly a lot to the other countries to manage those people, or just have the right people in the other countries?
I think as much as you have the right people, I think our role, which we've realized now, is as founders of a business, being in a founder-run business, it took us a long time to realize this, but it's very impactful for people when the founders go in. And the other thing that's even more important is to have people in Cape Town not living in an ivory tower and not truly understanding and empathizing with our customers and with our customer issues. So, I mean, we have people on the plane all the time. We fly customers from our markets to Cape Town to meet our coders and meet our team. So there's a lot of people flying all over.
I think the other one as well is we don't see it as different businesses. They're different geographical locations, but it is one business. And they totally kind of coexist. So, our call center is in Cape Town. When somebody in the fields logs on to Salesforce and registers one of our new agents, they're then communicating over their mobile device to our applications team sitting here. So there's a lot of kind of cross-functional responsibilities, and we don't really see it as individual companies. It's one separate unit.
Okay, let's go back to the funding. You bootstrapped in the beginning. You got the grant. You then got your Series A, your first round. Talk us through that process.
So I was going to say, I think we bootstrapped, then we had grant funding, then we had debt, then we had convertible debt. So I think we've literally probably been through all of them, and then we got to Series
So the great thing about our Series A was we went to the market with a product, which was an electronic voucher distribution product for food subsidies. And we brought in all our Series A investors, and we were pitching them, and they were telling us it wasn't a great business model, and we were adamant we were right, and we were going to, till the cows came home, we were going to prove that we were right. And then Zambia got raised from a level 2 to a level 1 country, and all funding stopped. So overnight, we lost 80% of our revenue. All of these investors watched us fall off a cliff, and we literally had absolutely nothing. And again, this is maybe where entrepreneurs are different to most people, is we saw that as a great opportunity. Because we literally said, if they see us climb out of this cliff and come out the other side, we'll be golden. And within 6 months, we went back to them with a totally different business model, this one which it is today. And then we raised $4 million out of one fund was out of Washington, and the other fund was out of San Francisco.
Okay, so international funding. So Series A is your first round of, say, serious big money, I suppose. Now, the American companies, why not South African or Zambian or...
So it's interesting. I think we approached a lot of, we tried to approach South African funds in the early days, and even now in our Series B round. I think the difficulty with South African funds is they actually don't know how to value a startup. So they try and value a startup based on a PE ratio, which essentially equates to how much profit you make. But as a startup, your whole objective is how to grow your business, and profit is actually irrelevant. It's probably revenue and cash flow that all you're really interested about, like growth and paying staff and people. So I think the South African investment industry has a lot to evolve. I think part of that comes with more like success stories in startups. I think we're starting to see a change, but I think it's just a journey that we need to go through as an industry. And I think I don't know, for us we almost see that as part of our responsibility. Is how do we take the lessons we've learned? How do we share those lessons with other startups? How do we hold the responsibility of making sure we keep growing as a business to kind of create this entrepreneurial buzz in this venture capitalist space to show the success. But the reality is that where we are today is there's a lot of social focused businesses in the States, in Europe, who are really looking at Africa and are really looking to look at businesses that have a social impact as well as driving a revenue growth. And that's where we kind of looked. We looked everywhere. We kind of ended there because that was the segment of the market that gave us the valuations that we needed to continue growing.
And I think the other thing, other than valuation, I mean, one of the things with any investors, if you set the value, they set the terms, or if you set the terms, they set the value. And I think the important thing is we've now gone through 2 rounds. Both of us are still on the main board of directors. Both of us are still significant shareholders in the business. And I think that's because the American and international funds have truly grasped that for the business to be successful, you want that entrepreneur to have a big stake. You want that entrepreneur living and breathing that business to a degree that no employee ever will. So I think, again, the investors, when we were talking to them here in South Africa, the chunk of the shares they wanted in the valuation was just, we just weren't prepared to even engage.
Obviously, investors didn't come knocking at your door. How did you find these investors, and how did you find these investors?
We found a great CEO who knew what he was doing.
Okay,
So I think Mike was Mike actually came to. Mike originally was an entrepreneur. He's all right. This is our CEO, and his vision was how to align African businesses with American investment. And he arrived in Africa on the first day, found us, and never left. But he had a lot of connections in the social enterprise world, and I think we as much like there's not a lot of investable businesses. It took us like 18 months to really get to the point where we could take on investments. We set up an advisory board. We had practice board meetings. We set budgets. We tracked against budgets. So it's a big commitment to go and raise money. I mean, if you're going to take money from someone else, you've got to make sure you know what you're doing, or make sure you're going to treat it well.
I also think is you've got to be absolutely deliberate about it. I mean, so when we were raising money, it was like, cool, it was our job to run the business. It was Mike's job to raise capital. And it was I think it was a 10-month process that was his role. And I think the other one as well, when you're raising money, is really understanding the importance of getting the right shareholders into your business. I mean, Brad spoke about when we were doing our original business plan and how the business kind of dropped off because of Zambia being upgraded. The other area that we had was 13, 14 months ago, the Zambian kwacha devalued 80% in the space of 6 weeks. So we literally lost 80% of our revenue in a 6-week period while we were then going to go and raise a Series B. And again, where we sat was, okay, cool, 2 things. One, can we ask our shareholders for help? Which they turned around in 2 weeks and helped us, because they truly saw the vision of the business. They didn't see it as an opportunity to squeeze, which I think a lot of, maybe some investment companies may. But the other thing for us was, great, what an opportunity when your currency's devalued 80% to prove you can survive it, prove you can still grow through it, and then go into the market and raise money again.
So the question on is, what? Okay, here we go. Here's one. Yeah. How did you overcome regulations and implement accordingly?
So we don't overcome regulations. We work with regulators. So I think the first thing we did is we're a designated payment system provider. Our first port of call in any new market launch is to have a good relationship with the regulator. And I think, if you go to a regulator and go, you've had banks in your market for 100 years and they've got less than 20% penetration and all of it is in urban areas, it's a very easy to sell to say we're going to go and target the 80% that have been excluded since the beginning of time. We had a lot of pushback from the banks in the early days, like like why would anyone trust us? Like who are we? So it took a lot of effort to get those things right. But one of our Series B investors was the IFC, part of the World Bank. So in terms of credibility as an organization, I think we're well past those bottlenecks. We are compliant in all markets we go to, and in many ways we try and lead regulation through best practice, going to regulators, we're trying to create an industry that doesn't actually exist. So if you're going to be bureaucratically based, it's very difficult to prove we're right when there's nothing to compare us to. But if you try and be principle based and say at first value, we're going to share everything we do with you, and then you can start drafting the policy with us as we start to grow, which is how we did it in Zambia, and it worked really well.
And how is it working with other countries?
Yeah, I think Malawi was the same way. I mean, it was actually amazing when we launched in Malawi. We met a few people, then we came and did a presentation, and it was quite scary. I mean, like presenting to this many people is scary. Presenting to 20 people from a regulator, that was pretty hectic. but again, it was that interest from the regulators to truly learn and try and understand this industry. And I think if you engage and almost work with them, and as we said, I mean, we're targeting a segment of the market that they truly want to target. And we've seen so far a great amount of engagement from the regulators, and it's worked well for us.
Do you have financial service providers that back you, and did you require a banking license? Do you?
So it depends market by market. So Zambia, we're our own designated payment system. Malawi, we're our own designated payment system. In Mozambique, we've launched with a banking partner, and DRC will choose whatever gets us to market quickest.
Okay. So you just
we're handling other people's money, so you have to be financially regulated.
Okay. As a startup, what advice do you have for raising? Say I want to raise R500,000. I've got a really kick-ass idea. You say that we need to get revenue, but what advice do you have for somebody that's got a bit of revenue, wants to go to investor? What advice do you have?
So I think the first thing for me is you don't start a business to raise capital. You start a business to solve a customer problem or meet a customer need. So my advice to anyone is take your idea, go into the market, test as fast as you can, fail as fast as you can, act, learn, repeat as fast as you can. And most importantly, find out within that, so we have what we call a customer touchline. Find the key pain points for those customers, choose that choke point and be 10 times better than anyone else at that, and relentlessly focus on that. And before you even talk about investors, go and find some people that are aligned with your values, aligned with your beliefs, and are prepared to bootstrap with you. Because I think investors aren't going to invest in your idea. They're going to look at your traction, they're going to look at your customer base, they're going to look at your team that you've assembled, and then they'll look at how big the size of the prize is. And just understand it's so much tougher, it takes so much longer, and it's a big effort to go and raise external capital if you want the right partners.
Okay, last question from our side, and then we're going to open it to some questions. So please get your questions ready. Feel free to put it onto Slido. We'll also be running around with this microphone. My question is, I was in the office there chatting to you guys today, and you said that every 90 days you reassess where the business is going. Can you tell us a bit about that and what?
So I'll talk through maybe the early days of the chaos, and then maybe Brad can talk about the 90-day structures we're kind of getting. I think like in the early days, it was almost like you make mistakes. So we could go that way for 90 days, and then we would meet up and we go like, guys, like, this is so wrong. And we'll go this way the next 90 days, and then we'll go this way, then we'll go this way. I think as a business, we've evolved a huge amount. But it's almost understanding that to really be successful, you've got to be willing to change, you've got to be willing to stop things, and you've got to be willing to start things. I think where we are now, yes, we kind of reassess every 90 days, but at the same time, we've got 5-year WIGs that we're working towards. Each of those 5-year WIGs are linked to a kind of 1-year objective that associates to that WIG, and then your 90-day objectives and key results are kind of, again, linked to that 1-year goal. So within a 90-day refresh, there is a lot of structure that we bring into place. But
So I think also if I look at ourselves versus the big competitors, we compete with banks, we compete with mobile network operators, MTN, Airtel, Vodacom. I mean, these are Standard Bank, Barclays Bank. These are big operators. So the only way we're going to truly be competitive is to be agile, and it's to be able to take a customer insight to a customer solution at a speed that they can't even dream of. So they've got technical debt, they've got legacy, they're big businesses, they're really good at what they do. So if we try and be them, they'll beat us. So how do we get so good that we can take a customer insight into a customer solution and build, test, iterate, and launch that in 90 days? So really the whole concept started with, how do we every 90 days choose the 3 key customer priorities through the customer's eyes? And then it becomes a case of, well, why would you not then have your best people working on the most important things? And then it was kind of like, well, hang on, if he's a manager of this lane, but he's needed in that lane, well, okay, cool, you're not a manager now, just go and work there. But it's been a real sort of process of you. For example, I see some of our data team here. So we have a data team, and that's their home base. But then each 90 days, they're allocated under what we call swim lanes, where they will literally go and work on a new business initiative to drive that value for 90 days. And obviously, you can't, like Brett says in the beginning, we had a guy that worked for us once who said what Zoona was like, where there was a little video clip where someone dropped 100 balls and you see a Labrador puppy trying to grab every single ball at the same time. So that's how we used to run the business. So it was about, how do you get really focused on a 5-year goal, a 1-year goal, but then stay agile and innovative within a 90-day period. And really just building that people ability to be agile and change and resilient is just so key.
So I suppose one of the things you look in your staff, are they able to be agile with you?
100%. And we do a lot of support with them. So we do a lot of agile training. We do a lot of learning. We, as an executive team, go and play Lego together, because your hands often think faster than your brain, and you suddenly build a piece of Lego, and before you know it, you're telling one of your teammates something you hadn't even thought of yourself. So we really do try and look at innovative ways to think differently and create value in different ways.
Okay, some questions. Does anybody have any questions? Feel free to. There we go, one at the back. So just use the microphone. I think, where's Jacques? I think use this one that's coming to you rather. It's marketing. So that's my wife Louise running around with the mic, and that's got the one for YouTube.
So I'm wondering how, wow, that sounds really weird. I'm wondering how you guys keep your agents safe in the field. You're giving them all of this money to transact business in these different emerging markets. How do you keep them from getting robbed?
So there's probably a few ways. I mean, the interesting one here, it's actually a question we often get asked, but these are cash economies. So the good thing about our agents is, yes, cash comes in, but cash also goes out, because there's that sending, receiving behavior. The reality is that next to them is the Coca-Cola distributor, or anybody who's selling produce, and that's produce out, cash in. So the amount of cash in the outlets actually around us is way more than actually what's sitting in our agents. Outside of that, I think there's also a cap where we want a particular outlet to grow to. And it's at that point we'll work with the entrepreneur or the agent who owns that outlet, and we'll look for them to actually open an additional outlet, and a 3rd outlet or 4th outlet, so that we're maintaining that ratio between risk and capital within the store, that they can still serve and not bounce any customers. Outside of that, we integrate into banks, so that ability to convert cash to electronic or electronic to cash is an absolutely key choke point for us. And we'll do it with banks, or we'll work with these big distributors of produce to take their cash away from them when they need to.
And I think two things to add to that is, the one being that all of our agents are from that local community. So the person there is someone you went to school with, someone you know, someone you're in the same church group with. And the other thing I would share, and Ron, sorry to call you up, but someone in the audience, Ron, is, and he cycled through every African country on the continent, and he spoke to our business the other day. And something he said just resonated with me, which 99.9% of the people he met along the way were just great people. And if these are people from their communities, they're enhancing their communities, their services, they all need, and to date, we haven't had issues. But it's not to say risks aren't out there.
Any other questions? Here we go, right in front. Okay, we'll come to you now.
I actually have so many questions. I'm hoping I win the Twitter competition. I actually applied for a job at Zoona, so I wasn't the fortunate mate to meet made it to meet you. I wanted to meet both of you, but I've got two questions I want to ask tonight. The one I want to ask is, which country do you choose? Like when you choose the next country to penetrate in, what do you base it on? What market research do you do? So which country is going to be next for Zoona? I know your aim is 10 countries by 2020. So where do you go next?
So I think the first thing is we probably look at where there's M&O segment. M&O, what's the word we use?
High mobile money penetration, but low banking penetration.
Yeah, and a segmented market, so no one M&O dominates the whole market. And then the other thing I also say is we don't get, and our CFO answers this maybe slightly differently, but not that differently, is we don't get too caught up in insights, because often you can get so many insights that the risks become that you actually don't want to go anymore. So sometimes you've actually just got to take that leap of faith and go. And I think that's one of the key things I think about entrepreneurs is you don't need to understand how you're going to solve every problem. You're just going to back yourself that as the problems come, you'll solve them.
Another question, what about moving into financial products, like offering them products to save money? You guys maybe looking at just building a community where they can start saving money, and how do you educate a community about that's unbanked to start saving money?
So that's now my core focus and my role. So Brad looks after people and I look after new products and services. And I think the answer there is to truly actually understand the customer need and engage your customers in designing and developing your solution. I think we're not the first to come up with the concept of saving. We won't be the first to come up with the concept of credit or insurance. But for example, often I'll say to people, oh, we're developing a savings product. And in first world markets, the first question they'll say is, well, what interest rate are you offering? But nobody we communicate with talks about interest. They talk about an ability to actually keep your money, so it's not save your money, it's keep your money, in a place that is safe, accessible, not too accessible, hence they don't want it in a mobile wallet, but Zoona outlets are enough there. But truly just understanding what is the customer need, spending as much time as possible in the problem, and then stepping back and saying, cool, let's design a solution for this. And I'll give you one interesting example. Is we are at the moment developing a credit product, and we're working with a number of informal traders and truly understanding the savings and credits and insurance products that exist within the cash economy. So before we bring a digital product, let's actually truly understand the cash products that are in the market, because they're pretty damn good, actually. The people's perception is, cash can't enable those things. But there are groups of women that get together every Thursday and do savings, credit, and insurance. And they're pretty complex solutions running on the back of an A4 notepad. But how do you digitize them is how we see it, is truly understand the problem and then digitize it for scale.
Okay, one more question for my friend. How did you come up with the name Zoona?
So the word Zoona is a Nyanja word in Zambia, and it means it's real, it's true. And when we started the business, we were trying to persuade rural cotton farmers that they could get money onto a cell phone. And they were like, no, we'd rather have cash. And we're going, no. And eventually this guy said, no, it's Zoona, it's true. So that's where the name comes from. It's real.
Okay, here in the front.
Maybe a question more to Brett now, as you've said your roles are kind of defined. Earlier, Brad made the comment of seeing the problems through customers' eyes, or the business problems through them. As you start to grow this business, as co-founders, how do you keep that piece so true? Because as you grow, you're employing 40-odd more people, you start to become a little bit more disconnected as each month and each year goes on. How do you stay true to that piece? Because that's one of the biggest problems that enterprises have, is they lose that connection with reality and they lose the connection with their business problems. How do you think you're going to keep that culture going, or that view of business problems?
So I think, first and foremost is the customer is the absolute reason why we exist. I think from a product perspective, I think at the moment I've got a team, I think, of about 16 people, and 10 of them are in Zambia right now, engaging with customers, understanding customers, and not only to just understand the solution, but to then come back and truly understand what we need to measure ourselves on to determine if our solution is working. So whenever we develop something new, there's almost 3 buckets. So we look after understanding the need, taking it to pilot, proving it successful at a pilot level, and then handing it to the business of today to scale it. And before we do that, like number one is, do we meet the customer experience and their expectation? First and foremost. If you don't meet that, then we don't even do it. Secondly is, can we operationalize that to ensure we can guarantee that experience? And third, is it financially viable? And only then do we hand it to the business to scale, but very deliberately in that order. So we don't start with money, we start with customer need, make sure we can do it and achieve and meet that expectation, and then, cool, like, does it make money? And then, but I do think as well from the people and culture side, it's like this is a constant drum. We are constantly drumming across the innovation or the Z Labs team or the business of today, is making sure your customer is front and center of everything we do.
And I think, again, it comes back to culture. And one of our favorite sayings is one day chicken, next day feathers. And I think you've got to stay humble and you've got to stay connected to your customer. And I think empathy and humility are traits we really do push hard in the business. Well, we don't have to push hard because they're naturally there, and it's a sort of behavior people exhibit.
And maybe the last point I'd say is, like, if you were to analyze any business that dropped off in revenue and go and truly analyze that business and rewind 6 months, and you'll probably see a drop-off in customer experience before you'll see a drop-off in revenue. So if you can truly measure experience and really measure your business on the experiences of your customers, that's your first kind of indicator of whether you're on the right track.
Question is, you mentioned Salesforce. Do you use any other software as a service apps, or do you develop in-house?
How long a list have you got, eh?
So I love tools. I think so. We use a lot of tools. I mean, our core tech is all being developed in-house. The different tools we use. I mean, we use Slack has definitely been one of the most successful for us in terms of improving communication, and obviously with multiple countries, it's key. Salesforce we spoke about. I've tried to implement loads of tools. I think you name a tool, we've probably used it.
I think where we've got really strong, there's ClickView and data. I think we've got a big investment in some really skilled data people who are doing some really incredible stuff around both predictive and
BR.
Yeah, totally. And I think and it's all around how do you take that data and impact on the customer. The funny thing about us is you know, we're a for-profit business, but we're absolutely convinced that great results come out of just building a business where there's good relationships, good thinking, good behavior, good teams, good results. And the circle goes around.
Excellent. Sorry, I just thought of another question. Okay. PR and marketing. Do you guys believe in it? Would you use it? What do you guys feel about that?
So this is an interesting one, eh? So we got our chief marketing officer about 4 months ago, and it's a real direction for us because we're firm believers in the Seth Godin approach, where you know, if you build great products and great customer experiences, you don't need to advertise or market. So we've got our own style of marketing over many years. We've never run a TV ad. Well, we ran one TV advert about 6 years ago. Never run a radio advert. Like, our whole business was built word of mouth. But we understand now that even though we didn't call it marketing, we marketed every day. It was just in our own way. So we've now built, or in the process of building, a significant investment into marketing because we've grown to that level where it is critical. And again, this is where we bring in capable people, and it won't be my responsibility, but it will be theirs.
Any other questions? One last question. Here we go. In the front. 2. Okay, we can do 2 questions. There we go. Yeah, this one. Is the microphone there? Sorry, Chelsea. Okay, we'll do the back person. We'll do the back person first, and then we'll come to.
Are you sure? This first, I think.
That's good.
Okay, I will go. 2 questions actually. The first one is, you know that the South African market is very banked, and yet you are here in this Cape Town. So why choosing Cape Town besides the maybe operation side of it, like any other factors? The second question, I forgot it. So.
All good, man, don't worry.
So let me start with your second question first. What was the first question?
I forgot your first one. So why Cape Town as operational base?
So I think we want to build a Pan-African business, and we want to have this as our hub, and it really is about skills. I mean, we've got some incredible engineers, we've got some incredible data scientists, we've got some great predictive analytics, we've got some real customer experience, customer-centric gurus in the making. So it's really just about being in an entrepreneurial environment that attracts good talent, because ultimately a business is nothing but people trying to do good stuff. And we feel there's good people in Cape Town, and we can attract good skills here.
Okay, now for the question in the front.
Okay, so as you are growing as a business and scaling and taking on a lot of people, how are you structuring your business to stay innovative and keep that flow between people going? And who do you look to for examples for that?
So I know one of our employees just got back from the States a couple of months ago, where she spent time with successful businesses in America who moved from startup to scale up. Another of our employees is actually flying off to America tomorrow to do the same thing. So we certainly don't think we know the answers, and we constantly like to challenge ourselves and look at all the questions. But I think there's so many things we do, like the 90-day cadence we set. Every 90 days, we bring the whole business in from all over, from all our markets. We do round-the-world cafes where everyone gives updates. It's just a constant journey around. I think to me, it's going to be around staying absolutely focused on our customer, staying true to our purpose, especially under pressure, and hiring well. I think if we can get those three basics right, the rest, whilst challenging, can be done.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. We've got the Twitter competition now, so Marwan, step up to the plate.
Okay, we've got a lot of great tweets tonight. Chad had a really simple tweet. He's not the winner tonight, but he had a really simple tweet that summarized one of the key lessons. If you don't like it, assign it. Which is kind of what you guys have been doing within your business. If it's something that you're not passionate about, you can pass it on to somebody else who is. And it's a much better way to approach your business than struggling with something you don't love. And one of our winning tweets, which is the second runner-up, is from Nathaniel Wagner, which is, as an entrepreneur, the best way to avoid burnout is to get yourself into a role that you are truly passionate about. And that's something that the founders of Zoona has really showed. If you do something you're passionate about, you're willing to go the extra mile and you're willing to go all the way. So Nathaniel, well done on being the runner-up. So the runner-up prize is for the 30 minutes, am I correct? 30 minutes with the founders? Yeah. Okay, so you get 30 minutes with the founders.
Just confirming, we're going to do it with the
whole Exco team, and if you want, you present a business plan to us, and we'll evaluate it for you and with you.
I like that. And the winner is...
And our CFO is quite tough, eh?
The winner is Hans. Build something which would allow your customers to thrive, and they will help you build your business to help them solve even more problems. And that is Hans. Well done. And I know Hans has a startup that's also solving problems for under-resourced communities in South Africa. So I think it's a really great opportunity for him to spend a day with you and to learn more about what you guys have built. So well done, Hans.
Thank you, Marwan. Okay, here we go. Actually, with these guys.
There we go. It's not a party till something's broken. Eh?
Give him a round. Come on, guys.
Congrats, man. Cheers. That's me, man. Cheers. Tallest man in the world. Eh? Cheers.
Okay, guys. Thank you very much. And then our final prize from Centrebank. So if you guys can please do a draw here of business cards. There we go. That's it. Aha. Pure Beauty. Louise Hasselman. There we go. And you get... There we go. You can give this to her. There we go. Well done.
Well, well done. What's heavy?
There we go. Okay, great. And guys, thank you very much for your time and for your insights. We really appreciate it. So all the speakers get two boxes of the fruit cube.
Awesome.
But what's really cool is that you're already using them. So you can talk to Andrew, the founder, and he'll and Leslie. They will help organize something. But here we go.
Brilliant. And
For you
thanks for
guys.
everyone for your time, mate.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.